Most people know him as Charles Bronson, Britain's most notorious prisoner, a man whose name became synonymous with prison riots, rooftop protests, hostage situations, and violence. But before Charles Bronson, there was Michael Gordon Peterson, born in Luton in 1952. Friends and family described him as charismatic, energetic, and fiercely loyal. He wasn't a murderer. He wasn't a serial killer. In 1974, at just 22 years old, Peterson was sentenced to 7 years in prison for armed robbery after holding up a post office and stealing around £26. A 7-year sentence, yet more than half a century later, he remains behind bars. So what happened? Inside prison, Peterson became increasingly violent. He attacked fellow inmates. He attacked prison officers. He took hostages. He staged protests. And over time, he became one of the most feared prisoners in Britain. It was during this period that he adopted the name Charles Bronson, inspired by the Hollywood actor. The name stuck, the legend grew, and so did his reputation. Over the decades, Bronson spent years in segregation and solitary confinement. In some periods, he was locked away for 23 hours a day. Days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years, and years became decades. Supporters argue that the prison system created the man we now know as Charles Bronson. They point to the isolation, the lack of rehabilitation, the endless cycle of punishment. They ask, what happens when someone spends so much of their life behind a cell door? Can anyone emerge unchanged? Critics see it differently. They argue Bronson made his own choices, that every assault, every hostage-taking, and every act of violence extended his time inside, that his continued imprisonment is the consequence of his own actions. And perhaps that's why his story remains so fascinating, because it forces us to confront difficult questions. Was Charles Bronson born dangerous? Or was he shaped by decades spent in Britain's prison system? Is he a violent criminal? A victim of institutional failure? Or something far more complicated? Few people know that away from the headlines, Bronson became an artist, a poet, an author. His paintings have sold for thousands of pounds. His books have gained a cult following. Some who have met him describe an intelligent, thoughtful man. Others see only the violence that made him infamous. The truth may lie somewhere in between. Today, Charles Bronson remains one of Britain's most controversial figures. A man who entered prison in his 20s and grew old behind bars. A man whose original sentence was measured in years, but whose imprisonment has been measured in decades. And perhaps the question that divides opinion more than any other is this: at what point does punishment become a life sentence, even when one was never handed down? And if someone has spent over 50 years in prison, can they ever truly return to the world outside?